Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and JustFlight have been so kind to give me a preview copy of their upcoming Vulcan. The Vulcan, an absolutely amazing airplane. I'm sure many of you are going to recognize it straight away when they see it, and I can tell you that much, it is a lot of fun to fly. Now, I'm not the typical military guy, so my military aviation knowledge is rather limited. I need to say that straight away. Nonetheless, I find these aircraft super impressive. So this video is going to be dedicated to those who, like me, are mostly into airline aviation, but still get a weak spot in their heart when they find planes like this, like the Vulcan, or like, for example, the Phantom or the F-14 Tomcat. So that said, my rather limited knowledge of military aircraft is certainly going to show in this video. So this one is going to be not only a preview of the Vulcan flying, but it's also going to show you what you can do out of an aircraft like that when you have limited military experience like I do. Alright, so let's move straight into the aircraft and we are going to have a look into some of the details. By default, the Vulcan comes with 4K textures, but an 8K texture set is available as a separate download, and in this one over here we've got the 8K textures installed. So just to give you an idea what it looks like when we go really close up, let's just move about here and you can get an idea. Make sure to turn the video into 4K so that you can actually see what's going on over here with the texturing on the panel. Overall, it's a very well looking panel. It gives you the feel of that 1950s aircraft, and it really gives you an idea of what an airplane like this looks like. They've also modeled some of the wear and tear of the airplane really perfectly, and overall it is worth saying that JustFlight had very good access to a real Vulcan airplane on display. So they've had real Vulcan crews, they've had real Vulcan engineers, they even did the sound recordings straight in the real airplane, including the engine runs, which is something that I find really cool. Alright, so let's have a very quick look into some of the different options we've got available, because we've got an electronic flight pack down here that gives us not only the typical JustFlight EFB with things like access to Navigraph charts or for example, the ability to download a SimBrief OFP or to open some checklists over here and stuff like that, but it also gives us the aircraft configuration system, and this is really where the Vulcan goes to show what it has. So we can change between different panel states, and then we've got a lot of different ground options over here. Right now we've got chocks covers in place, the bomb doors are open, and the crew door is open as well. We can see that from the front over here. Got the engine covers in place. That's the crew door you've got down here, and that's our bomb doors over there. Now, going back right into the airplane, we can choose between a whole different load of what we want to have. We can put auxiliary tanks into the bomb bay, or we can, for example, load a nuclear weapon down here that, well, is going to be visible when we look at it in flight again, but rest assured, down there it's hanging. Alright, so I suppose with a look at all of these features, we are just going to take a flying, but here it is, by the way, that's our nuke. But let me just unload the nuke again. With my flying skills, I wouldn't be surprised if we blow up half of England accidentally. So for the safety of everyone, I'm going to remove the nuke again from my airplane. We've also got a couple options over here, like synchronize the altimeters, panel state saving. We've got GPS navigation, which is something I'm going to put on because that adds us that little GPS unit down here that we can use for our navigation. Because, well, to be honest, I still got to find my way around these airplanes' navigation systems. I figured out where the COM is. I figured out you can tune the navs like this. Then we've got a navigator station in the back that we'll have a look at very shortly, where we can tune TACANs. But it is a rather complex plane in terms of navigational abilities, so it's pretty nice from JustFlight that they've added this GPS navigation device down here that we can use as well. Alright then, moving on from there, we've got a different menu over here. That's the airplane's configuration, where we can choose whether we want to have the nose probe or if we want a tanker configuration. You can choose whether you want to have the Rolls-Royce Bristol 201 or the 301 engines. Now on this particular airplane we got the 301. Now 301 basically has a slightly different outlet of the engines, and therefore they sound a little bit different. So the 201 engines are the ones that have that iconic howl sound that I'm sure many of you know from the Vulcan. The 301 doesn't have that, and that's realistic. So if you see that, then you will know that's realistic. What I also find especially nice down here is the 558 aerial. So that's a set of antennas that you can install in the airplane. For example, over here on the top and on the nose, we got some antennas added when we put that on. Now, this is a set that's only been put on after the Vulcans had originally been retired already, but that particular airplane that was revived for the air shows until 2015, that one, due to airworthiness requirements, needed to be retrofitted with some sensors and antennas, and that option is simulated right down here. It's called the 558 because it was Vulcan 558 that actually had those fitted. Alright, so that's the configurations we have down here. We've also got a menu where we can refuel our airplane, like so. We can also do air-to-air refueling over here, by the way. And finally, we've got that little comm option over here, where you've got quick access to all your comms to the transponder and so on. So let's have a very quick look at the different stations we've got in the airplane before we are going to start setting it up. So we've got a little shortcuts over here on the screws, but you can also use the bottom of the electronic flight pack to shift between the first pilot, second pilot, AEO, which is basically the electricals and is located in the back of the plane. Then we've also got the navigator station down here, where we've got things like the transponder or like the TACAN up here. So that's what we've got available in the plane. And we've got shortcuts to move between all these different stations, which we'll all need in flight, on these little screws. So you click the bottom screw, for example, get to the navigator station, click the screw down here, get to the electrical station, click the screw down here to get back. So like that you can easily move around the cockpit and the different stations that you've got in this airplane. Alright, so that's just a couple of the cool things that we got inside the Vulcan over here. Another thing that I do like to point out at this point, the Vulcan obviously is a nuclear bomber, so with the chance of nuclear blasts around the airplane, there had to be something to protect the pilots from those blasts, and I'm gonna show you what that something is. So first of all, we got the standard sunshades that we would be using in pretty much like any situation where the sun is being low and shining into our eyes, like that. But then we've also got the nuclear blast shields up here, and those basically completely close out the window, so that when a nuclear blast happens, the pilot's eyes are protected. I find that quite cool that these things are all modeled in the JustFlight Vulcan. Alright, so let's get rid of that stuff and let's get the airplane flying. Okay, so in terms of flying, there's a very nice tutorial available in the manual, which I can absolutely recommend you to read, and we are just going to go over that right now. So starting down here, we're going to turn on the oxygen, and then we basically need to move to the back already. So to that back over here, where we're going to start setting up the electrical. So we'll start with the battery, switch that one on, and when we're on it already, I'm just quickly going to close the crew door. That gets us rid of the wind sound. Alright, that's much better. Alright, cool. So battery is on, voltage is above 24, that's perfect. Then we can move on, and we're going to go over here, hit the trip button, make sure these lines are quitting, then reset back to normal. Perfect. Okay, let's connect our ground power and the ground air unit. Takes a little while for it to start up, but you're going to see it in a moment. You can hear it starting in the background. Now it's powering up, and you can see we've now got AC power up here. Right, very quick look from the outside then. Over here we've got a unit, in the back we've got another. Alright. Alright, very cool. So that thing is slowly starting up. Okay then. So we're gonna open that one and we'll go ahead and start the Airborne Auxiliary Power Plant, AAPP. That's basically the Vulcan version of an APU. And we're going to start that one in a moment. So before we do that, we just gotta run a quick safety check of the cockpit. And we'll start down here, making sure that the yaw damper is switched off. We've got all the warning lights on the powered flight control display down here. And then we can continue on the main panel. We've got the main warning light on both sides. We can check the air brake. That is nicely hidden below the thrust levers. This is the air brake down here. Got 3 different positions, so that's it. And that is in the down position. Then we can move on to the first officer side, really. So let's just go second pilot over here. Here we go. So the anti-icing is in off and low, and then moving down to the side panel on the right hand side, we make sure that we're seeing the shut indication down here and in the back. That thing's in the middle position down there. That's the AVS master switch, by the way. Alright, cool. So from there, let's go ahead and start up the AAP. P? Oh god, what a word. I'm going to do that wrong in this video. I'm sure I will. Okay, here we are. So, we are going to carry out the fire test. That's working just fine. Master switch on. Then we're going to fire the cartridge. And the AAPP is starting up. When it's started, we can establish electrical power. So let's just give it a little while to actually get running. It is stabilized. Here we go. Okay, AAPP on. Here we go. Okay, so now let's continue. We are going to turn on our electrical system over here. And then we can return to the front cockpit where we're going to start our work down here. So we'll start with the radio, gonna switch that on over here. This is your frequency, by the way. So 2485 basically means 124.85 as frequency. So for example, we can do 118.9.75 right now, or 118.77. So that's your radio down there. The bump door can go into the auto position, and we just verify on the mechanical indicator there. So let's do bump door close, and that thing should be moving now, but we might not have hydraulic power yet, so might not be moving just yet. So let's just keep it, we put it on open. Tell you what, just put it in auto as the manual says. That's it. Alright, cool. Next up is our altimeter. We find that down here. Gonna reset it. That removes the off flag. And then we go down here and we open the fuel cocks. Right, those are all open. And then we can guard the covers once again. And moving on from there, we are going to reset the G meter down here. Landing gear is showing 3 greens. And finally, the park and brake is set on down here. So that's the on position. The off position is in the back and to the top. Alright. In case there is insufficient brake pressure available, like you can see it right now, we can just run the electrical pump. Here we go. And the hydraulic pressure is charged again. So that's quite quick down there. Moving back down to the throttles, we've got that switch on the top over there, and that's set into the takeoff position, and then we got the JPT limiter, which is set into the up position. On the other side of the throttle, make sure that the emergency gear extension down there is in the in position and not pulled, and that switch over here is set to MFS. Alright, from there we move on to the fuel gauges, which are located down here, and we've got sufficient fuel loaded up for our flight. Alright then, from here we go down to special of the Vulcan, and since it is rather hard to get into the cockpit, the fuel console is retractable. So look at that, you can extend and retract the fuel console so that you can't rip off any of the switches when you're getting into the cockpit, but then you can extend it once you're inside. What's also quite cool, once power is applied, we've actually got our second pilot visible here in the cockpit. And I gotta say, that's a really good modeling and texturing over there. He really looks like he belongs into that cockpit. Alright then, from here on we're going to check all the fuel pumps are working. The way we do that is opening the crossfeed valves, and then you've got the fuel warning indicators up here, the fuel pressure indicators, and when they're showing white they're illuminated, there is no pressure. When they're showing black there is pressure in the system. So what I'm going to do now is I'll zoom out a little bit so that you can actually see what I'm doing both down here and on the pressure indicators down here, all 4 of them. And what we'll do is we'll turn the pumps on one by one. When a pump goes on, you'll see up there the pressure light is no longer illuminated. And that way, we're going to check every single one pump. So we turn them on, turn them back off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And like that, you just do every single one pump you got in the airplane to make sure that all the pumps are actually working. Right, so that's our pumps checked, and now we can turn the cross feeds back off. We go down to the autopilot panel. We've got 3 switches: rudder, aileron, elevator, all in the top, and then we can pull the power switch. Now it takes a little while for the autopilot to actually boot up, and when it's ready, we're going to see that ready light down here illuminate. That takes a little while, but it is eventually going to come, and when that is there, we can continue with our procedures. Here we go. That's the ready light illuminated right down there. Okay, so from there we can move on to the second pilot seat. So let's just go over here again. And from here we make sure, again, that switch over there is in the top position. That's another MFS position. That does not stand for Microsoft Flight Simulator, by the way. That was my very first take on it as well, but no, it doesn't. Then we can move on down here. We've got the throttle detent switch. That's going to go into the off position. Just got to find that cover again. That's nicely hidden down here. No, we don't need any lights. Here we go. That's what we're looking for. Then down here we got the pressure selector. Gonna put that to the top and guard it. And then moving a little bit further, we make sure those cabin air switches are in a shot position. And then we go down to the lights. We'll put the light master on and the nav light into flash, and that's basically our indication that we're about to start the engine to the ground crew. Alright, and with that, our pre-flight procedures are basically completed, so we can go ahead and start up the engine. There's 2 ways of starting them. There's a rapid start and there's a normal procedure. In this video we're going to use the rapid start procedures just because, hey, they're more fun. Alright, so fuel pumps coming on. All of them. All dozen of them. Alright, then we can unlock the thrust levers and move them somewhere to a middle position like so. And with that, we can now move down to the engine start panel that's located in the back over here. We're going to switch the start selector to rapid, turn on both the ignition and the master switch, and now we simply hit the rapid start switch, and that's going to start them all up. But before we do that, we better remove the covers. And we can take the chocks out as well. Alright, cool. So, let's hit the rapid start button. All 4 lights are illuminating, and now our Vulcan is starting up all 4 engines at the same time. That's quite a cool thing, it really is. Alright, the engines are coming. Alright, that's our engine started, so the throttles can go back into the idle position. The starter lights are all out, and with that we can switch off the master switch and the ignition as well. Alright, cool. So with that, our engine start is complete. Now let's go back to the electricals and start putting our generators online. Got them all located down here. Alright, and then we can also turn on our TIUs. Here we go. Okay, back to the cockpit. So, a couple of checks for us to do. First of all, the air brake. You've got the light down here. Remember, the switch is located down here below the throttle. And when that's coming down, we verify our air brake is working. Alright, that is looking good. Then we can move on to the left side, and we are going to start with the bomb door. So we're going to go onto the open position, and again, doors in transit, and the door agrees with the selector. And then let's check that it's also closing correctly. In transit, and closed. Alright, back in auto, and that's it. Very cool. Then we can move on, and we are going to switch on all the PFCs, the powered flight controls. Make sure all the lights are going out, and this is one that I'm struggling a little bit with, like the field lights down here, how to get them out. That's something that I sometimes run into a little trouble, so when that happens, I just basically start hitting knobs there without knowing what I'm doing, and eventually they're going off. So I'm not exactly sure if what I'm doing there is correct, but well, eventually we got there. Alright then, back into the electrical station. We're going to synchronize our alternators to alternator number 2 and confirm successful load sharing, and then isolate 1, 3, and 4, which we can do down here. Alright. Very good. So that is done. Let's move back into the main panel. Alright, now we could go ahead and do our nav radios. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up the GPS down here. So there's really standard Microsoft GPS down there. Nothing fancy. Here we go. Direct 2. Select waypoint. Echo, Golf, Charlie, November. As we're going to stay in the vicinity at Doncaster. And that's really it. That's all I'm going to do down here. Alright. Back to the map. That's it. Thank you. Alright, so with that done, we move over to the left side, and somewhere hidden behind that lever down here is the master switch or radio altimeter, which we're going to put on. And make sure that it's in the 5,000 foot range down here. Alright, so last thing before we actually start getting our airplane moving is we're going to remove the safety pins of the ejection seat, which we got over here. And now they are located on the side over here. Like that you can put in the safety pins of your ejection seat. Okay, they're now pulled, so let's just quickly move over to the second pilot's side. And down here we're going to turn on the landing lights. Right, down to the taxi position. And that's it. Okay, with that we are fully prepared for taxi. So let's go ahead, move back to the first pilot's seat. And then we can remove the ground power unit and the air start unit. Release the parking brake. And off we go. The plane does start to roll in idle thrust, but I personally do just prefer to use a little bit of power there, get it moving a little bit quicker. It taxis fairly well on the rudder, as we are going to see in a few moments, but differential braking is available when needed. The Vulcan is a big plane, so when you're taxiing it, just be aware you're sitting well in front of the nose gear, and the main gears are even further aft. Alright, so here we are, back on the inside. Going to go left towards runway 20. Like so. And here we go. It is a big plane indeed, so do keep that in mind when you're taxiing it. However, it's not as long as a lot of airliners typically are, so, well, it taxis like a heavy airplane, however, it still turns like, well, a smaller one. But you can really feel that it is a heavy plane over here. Okay then, the right side's clear, the left side's clear, let's go over. And here we go. Alright, we can start the lineup on the runway straight away. Like that. Okay, clear left side, clear right side. We're gonna switch to the second pilot in a moment in order to turn on the landing lights, but apart from that we are mostly done. Alright, we are on the runway. Let's just set the parking brake once more. That's somewhat hidden behind the GPS here now. Here it is. Alright, that's a parking brake set. So let's start doing a couple of basic things on the setup now. We are one more time going to move back to the electricals down here, just making sure that the alternators are on, the APP is on the sync bar, and the 115 volt transformers are on, and all indications are normal. So basically just going over everything, making sure that it's all showing normal as it should, and that's it. Alright, so looking good in the back. At least I do hope that I haven't forgotten anything. No guarantees down there. In any case, let's go right back to the front. Okay, so now we got to move over to the second pilot one more time, and down here we got a little bit more stuff to do. We are going to turn on the pressurization coming from engines number 1 and 2 and from the port side, and then we are going to go down here and switch the landing lights into the landing position. Okay, cool. So with that, should be mostly done. Pressure head heaters can come on. Pressure head, by the way, is a lovely word for the UK to say pitot probe. So that's just the pitot heaters we've effectively turned on. Okay, so moving back to the first pilot seat, as we are going to fly the airplane from here. So let's quickly talk about the takeoff. You've got 80,000 pounds of thrust on this plane, so the Vulcan is going to gain speed rather quickly, and it's also climbing rather quickly. So it's important to stay ahead of the aircraft during takeoff and initial climb. JustFlight certainly recommends reading the takeoff and climb section of the tutorial flight before performing them, so that you've got an idea of what to expect. So let's just quickly go over it as we do it. You're going to hold the brakes and smoothly increase power to 80% RPM, and once all engines are stabilized, release the brakes and advance throttles to full power. As the aircraft starts to gather speed, we apply a small amount of nose down pressure on the control column to keep the nose wheel in contact with the ground, and use rudder inputs to keep the aircraft on the center line. Passing 148 knots, we are going to pull back on the control column into the neutral position, and then a slight back pressure, which should be all we need to start raising the nose. When the aircraft begins to climb away from the runway, we are going to apply the brakes for 4 seconds, and then we're going to raise the undercarriage. Make elevator inputs as required to maintain an initial climb speed of approximately 156 knots, holding the runway heading. Now, once in a stable climb, lower the nose and start to accelerate your climb speed of 250 knots. Reduce power to less than 90% RPM, and then set the takeoff cruise selected to cruise. That's the one down here. Once set, the power can be increased back to 95% RPM, which is the maximum permitted for day-to-day operations. The landing lights are going to retract automatically when the speed exceeds 180 knots, so you can just put the switches to retract afterwards. Now that's pretty much the takeoff and climb technique that we have to use. Now, what you'll notice is we've got a lot of elevator up input, but very little nose down capability on this airplane. So that is actually something that I thought looked strange to me, and I contacted JustFlight to clarify before recording this video, but it did turn out that that is indeed realistic to the Vulcan. So in order to really lower the nose rapidly, you need to apply a lot of bank to the airplane, and then your nose is going to come down. I was really surprised to hear about that, but it is what they said. It does work well, so let's just go out and see how that is going to look in flight. Alright, are you ready to go? Then. The Rolls-Royce Bristol Olympus engines are rather slow to respond, so look at that. Thrust levers are long in the position. Okay, coming up to 80%. Here we go, that's 80. Brake off, full power. Here we go, flying a Vulcan. Alright, forward input on the elevator. And you can see our speed is increasing, that's 80 knots past. You need quite a bit of rudder to keep it on that runway. Okay, 148, rotate. That's a positive climb, gear up. $180 knots. That's our landing lights retracting automatically. Now let's start accelerating. This is full forward elevator input. You see how little elevator authority that is? That is what I meant, but apparently that is realistic. Okay, let's pull the power below 90. Power is down, and cruise is selected. Power back up 95%. And all that while we keep accelerating. Right, that's 95% power set. Looking for 250 knots, and then we're going to initiate our climb. Alright, and that's approaching 250 knots over there. Let's pitch up. You can see that's a really small and gentle pitch up input, but a full nose down doesn't do all that much. So a lot of elevator up authority with really little elevator down authority. But JustFlight confirmed that it is correct. They even talked to a Vulcan crew member again before confirming it to me, so apparently this is really correct. Okay, so a little bit of pitch trim as well. Here we go. Okay, very nice and stable. So let's just quickly move over to the second pilot seat. And we're going to retract the landing lights, or the landing light switches down here. Like so. Right, back to the first pilot. Doing 270 knots right now, so let's pull up a little bit more. 250 is our target. And that is what we're accelerating towards. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple of basic flying parameters here. Rate of climb, approximately 4,000 feet a minute. For the speed, yeah, slightly reducing right now, but overall still fine. Now it's stable speed, 4,000 feet a minute in the climb. Perfect. Engine gauges down here. Let's just make sure we've actually got 95% on all of them. It's 96 on number 1. A little bit more on number 4. Tiny bit more on number 1 maybe. So it's roughly 95%. And that is all we can ask for. Accelerating a little bit once again. So let's start with a right-hand turn. I'll bring the stick into the view for you as well down there. So that's like what I'm doing on my stick right now. Really responsive on the aileron, but still nice to control, as you can see. And the elevator, now that we're getting faster, is developing some authority as well. This is full down input right now. Versus this is pulling up. We gotta be careful keeping the Vulcan inside its G-force limits here. The plane is limited to 0G and up to 2G depending on the weight. So that's really a little scale that we've got available down there that we gotta keep the airplane within. So something to keep in mind as we are flying it. But it is a great lot of fun to fly this. Okay, cool. So we're just going to climb a little bit further right now. I want to get it up to, I don't know, maybe 50,000 feet. Vulcan can absolutely fly 50,000, so might just about do that as well. Now, while we're climbing, let's just quickly go to altimeter standard pressure. There we go, 1013, passing level 206, and climbing. Climb schedule is 250 knots indicated until Mach 0.86. And we are mostly going to fly it manually. However, there is an autopilot available, which we are going to talk about in a few moments. But for now, let's just keep flying it manually, as we're going to exhibit a couple of interesting flight characteristics of the airplane. As you can see, still doing 4,000 feet a minute, and the Vulcan is able to climb from the moment of setting power on the runway to 40,000 feet in just 10 minutes. So it's really got a very good climb performance here, and that is what we want to see on our flight over here as well. What's also worth noticing, it does not really have like a fly-by-wire auto trim or anything the likes. So the Vulcan is really a plane to be hand-flown, but it handles really, really nicely. Like, I need very little stick inputs. Have a look at that. Just pulling the nose up slightly as the speed is increasing a bit. Now releasing it to neutral, trimming a tiny bit, and look at how stable it actually is. A very stable airplane. You can hand fly it for a long time. And yes, we do have an autopilot down here, but no, we don't really need it too much. However, we're still going to talk about it for a bit. Okay, for now though, what we're going to do is we'll just manually fly it up and see how it's going to perform. So we're approaching 30,000 feet right now. You can see our Mach meter has still not come alive, and don't let yourself be fooled. Even though you got a Mach meter between 0.7 and 1.3, you can see a maximum operating Mach number down here at around about 0.915 roughly. So we want to take that into account. However, the plane is intended to be flown at roughly those speeds, so it can perform very well when compared with any airliner aircraft. Now, keep in mind this is a 1950s plane, and mostly it is a plane that's designed to carry bombs. It doesn't have to be very fast. The payload just has to go where you want it to go. Okay, so we are now passing flight level 330. The Mach meter is slowly coming alive, and we're going to transition over to Mach 0.86. And on that we are going to continue our climb. And like that, we literally can let the airplane just climb up as we want it to. So a couple of things in terms of limitations of the airplane then. We're going to start with a couple of the basics really. The maximum flight level that the airframe or that the aircraft can achieve is actually not limited from the airframe. So the limiting equipment for the Vulcan, or the limiting factor for the Vulcan, is simply the oxygen equipment that's fitted to the airplane. And depending on the equipment fitted, it can go all the way up to 56,000 feet. So that is the highest limit that we can climb it up to, 56,000 feet. And you're somewhat guessing at where we are going right now, are you? Just keeping an eye there on our systems. Mostly on the engines here that we stay at 95%. You can see number 4 has just increased thrust a little bit there, so just gotta get that back to 95, which is the maximum continuous thrust we've got on this one. Don't want to go to 94 though, so I'm just playing with my thrust lever a little bit here, trying to get it to stabilize at 95, but that's looking quite good for me. Okay, nose has dropped a little, we're in 40,000 feet already. Speed is slightly increasing, we want to prevent that, so just pitch up a bit. And now just have a quick look It's quite hard to see on the attitude indicator because it is really rather imprecise over here, but have a look outside the window. We're doing like 1,600, 1,500 feet a minute right now. Have a look outside the window by how little I need to pitch the airplane in order to get a result. I'm pitching it up maybe by 1 degree or so. Like that. Look at that, we are from 1,500 feet a minute to 3,500. Also, we're reaching our target Mach number. We're at 0.89 right now. We're 1.86, so let's pull the nose up a little bit further and get the Mach meter back to 0.86 just over there. So just look at that rate of climb. It's impressive, isn't it? Alright, that's 0.86. Let's just make a slight right and turn over here. We want to stay... We don't want to get too far out from Doncaster. So, Mach 0.86, here it is. Gotta stabilize the plane on that. And while I'm making turn towards the east over here, we are going to continue our climb. Obviously, hand flying is not as precise as flying on autopilot. So, it's hard to say exactly what kind of rate of climb we're getting over here. But I tend to say it's safe to say that something just over 2,000 feet a minute is still a safe rate of climb that we're getting at these altitudes up here. The plane was built partially under the philosophy that if you just climb high enough, then you can simply out-climb any of the enemy fighters. And that was part of the philosophy that went into building the Vulcan. Now, for that reason, we can climb to insane altitudes like 56,000 feet. The idea back then was just, well, if you're above any of the fighters, they can't shoot you down. And I do suppose that did work partially. Like, the British weren't the only one who came up with an idea like that. The Americans did as well, and that's why the U-2 spy plane was able to fly up to like 80,000 feet or so. And it worked for quite a while. There were several reported cases of U-2s flying over the Soviet Union and other places where Soviet fighters came up and tried to catch the airplane, but they simply couldn't catch it. And ultimately, the U-2 pilot was flying along, taking his photos, and there were, well, fighters a couple thousand feet below them, unable to reach him. That worked for a long while, until eventually the Soviets did develop a missile which was able to shoot it down, and obviously the U-2 was flying a lot higher than the Vulcan is over here, so the fly high in order to get rid of any of the enemies technique did work for a few years, but really not for too long. But you can see we're already reaching 50,000 feet up here, so it's an impressive climb that this airplane can do. Right, we got 50,000. Let's go a little bit higher. Also, we're almost on the easterly course that we wanted to set, so we are soon going to roll wings level once again. At this moment, flying the Vulcan, still fairly straightforward. Got our easterly course now, let's roll wings level again. And let's go back to Mach 0.86. Pretty much like so. Alright, in terms of elevator authority up here, obviously we do have good elevator authority. Like, let's go ahead and trim the plane out at first. Here we go. Maybe trim it out for a little bit higher nose. But look at that, if I'm now pressing forward, then I'm getting a decent response out of the plane as well. Just remember, when you're flying this, it is a bomber, it's not a fighter, so the plane is obviously a little bit heavier, and you probably don't want to pull 2 Gs with a nuke a couple meters behind you, do you? Alright, another quick word here in terms of the acceleration. You can see the stripe we've got over there is basically our 1G position. And you can see that we've basically been flying between like plus 1.6 and plus 0.5 Gs on this one. And you really don't want to pull much more than what we have right now. So You can't go missile evasive with this. That's a sure thing to say. Right, still kind of nicely. 0.86 on the speed like we have right now. Pull it back up a little bit. You can see now we need to fine-tune our maneuvers a little bit more than we had to previously. But passing 53,000 feet now, and we're still getting a fair 1,000 feet a minute out of the plane without losing any of our speed. So that is quite good. I'm just going to continue the climb for a little bit, because I want to see how high we can really get it. We've got a full load of fuel on board, and we do not have anything in the bomb bay, so I don't know how much a nuke like that weighs, maybe a couple of tons, I suppose. So I do suppose what we're seeing right now is pretty much the power we'd get out of the airplane, rather close to the maximum weight possible. Climb has settled a little bit, 54,000 feet, flight level 540. Still doing like 700 feet a minute, so we'll just let it go for a bit. But we're going to take a small moment and go to the outside of the plane and just see what it looks like flying up here. Have a look at that. This is what I call an altitude. You can actually see the Earth curvature over here, and this is like the altitude at which Concorde flew as well. Really, really cool. Also, we can use this to have a little bit better look at the outside of the Vulcan. So we just zoom in pretty much like all the way. We can see quite a good level of detail. This is maximum zoom in now, and I can't see anything being unsharp over here. Everything's totally crisp. Even if we go all the way up to the wing over here, everything's totally crisp. Nice reflection of the beacon over there as well. That's our retracted landing lights up here. Overall, a really good looking airplane. Right, let's go back inside. We've accelerated a little bit, Mach 0.88, so let's pitch up a tiny bit. You can see how little inputs I'm doing down here. Like, look at the stick now, when I'm pitching the point up or down. This is really minimalistic input, and that is how you steer an airplane. You always have to keep in mind that the further you fly, the higher our true airspeed is getting. And the higher our true airspeed is, the stronger the reaction of the airplane to our control surface input. So if I'm pulling just a little bit stronger right now, you can see immediately how strong the response of the plane is over there. Alright, back to 0.86, here we are. And we're approaching 56,000, which is the limit of what our Vulcan can do, due to the oxygen equipment fitted. Let's just make sure we actually get it straight at 56. I want to be able to say that we flew it all the way up. Right, a little bit of rate of climb here. Just making sure not to drop the Mach number too much. We don't have an indication on the instruments where our stall speed would be, so we got to be careful when we're flying this. Right, 56,000, here we are, flight level 560, and I believe it's fair to say for the first time in the channel's history we made it all the way up here. Right, let's trim it out, slight bit of back trim, and here we go. Right, we're up in 56,000 feet, ladies and gentlemen. That's just incredible, is it? But the sun is quite strong up here. Let's get those sunshades down. Like that. Alright. Hey, don't get climbing, my friend. Right, so let's accelerate all the way to maximum speed now. 0.91. We can do 0.93 in it, but let's just see where we're gonna get. When that is achieved, we're going to turn back to our Stormcaster, and we are going to do maybe touch and go traffic pattern, and that's gonna be that then. Alright, here we are. Let's just quickly go to the GPS. Let's go direct to one more time. Doncaster Sheffield Airport. Activate that, please. Here we go. I somehow doubt those indications though. Bearing 042, 117 miles, that's wrong. I suppose we just gotta do it over the map then. Like so. Here we go. That's better. Okay. Whoopsie, accidentally started climbing a little bit higher. Right, so, very quick look by the way at the fuel gauges, find that quite cool. You can actually see them moving up and down a little bit here, which is a neat little feature. Okay then, suppose we're going to turn the plane around. Let's just see what kind of maneuvers we can do up here. Look at how quickly we are losing our airspeed with that bank angle on. And I can feel some rumble there. The airframe doesn't seem to feel too happy flying that slow at these altitudes. Right, so we're looking for a roughly westerly course that we're about to adapt. So let's increase our Mach number. 0.91, here we go. Just gotta be careful. You can see that we've just pulled it to 2 Gs, and 2 Gs is maximum. So, just gotta be a little bit careful with that. Now we're at maximum speed in 53,000 feet. It's just impressive. You can see on the FO stick what I'm doing on my side stick over here. Little inputs, as always, is key to successfully flying the plane. Okay, let's not overspeed it. And we can start pulling some of that power off. Come back to approximately 70% for our descent. Here we go. Then we're just going to keep our Mach number while we're heading back towards Doncaster. Nice rate of descent that we're getting there. 4,000 is the limit of the instrument, probably doing a little bit more. At least looking at the instrument, looking at the altimeter, it seems like we are doing a fair rate of descent there. The good news is that up here in 50,000, probably nobody's going to care. Go direct 2 one more time, activate that, and maybe just go over here as well. So you can just again give me Echo Golf Charlie November, enter that. Right, 34 miles. Well, that is rather close. Didn't expect to be that close, but I suppose that is fine with me. So, let's start a little bit more rapid descent then. Going back to Mach 0.9. Alright, that's 0.9 as we wanted it. Descending back down to the altitudes where we actually got to care about other traffic. And then we're going to go to our maximum indicated speed of 350 knots, and that is the descent profile that we are going to use. A little bit of nose down trim, like that. And here we are, stable. Going down 4,000 feet a minute. Very, very nice. Alright, cool. So, with that done, and with the airplane established in its descent, let's have a very quick look down here at the EFB once more. And a couple of the things that we can do. So, first of all, if we go over to the navigator station, I find it a little unfortunate that down here we don't get any live updates for our distance and course to the field. Always need to reselect it up here. EGCN. Enter. We're like 23 miles from the field now. That's a little unfortunate down there. But if we just go back to the pilot seat and take out the electronic flight bag, maybe we can grab a couple of charts. Keep descending, please, my friend. Just trim it again for a bit, and here we go. That's better. Right, so let's go onto the charts. Again, EGCN. Find us that. Approach, and then we've got the ILS approach runway 20 down here. Right, frequency 110.95, and then there's Sheffield NDB on 338. So obviously you could just go and tune it the conventional way, but you can also make your life easy and just tune it over the EFB. So remember 110.95 for an ILS, and then if we just go on to the aircraft options over here, and onto that microphone, then you can tune in 110.95. Like so. And that's it. As easy as that. Over here you can also set the ADF. So over here, for example, we could go 0338.0, enter that, and here we go. So that's one possibility of what you can do through the electronic flight bag. Okay. So let's just select localizer and glide slope up here. And the runway track is going to be something like 200 or so. So let's quickly dial that in. So that's 200. Now if we have a quick look at the chart, then that's 198. We can absolutely live with that. Here we go. Right, cool. So that's just part of the stuff you can do down there. Okay. So let's see that on the GPS one more time. If we go to the map, then we can basically start a right-hand turn towards the field. That's roughly going to be a northerly heading. Got a little bit more bank over here. Crossing the back course of the localizer right now. What's also really worth mentioning is have a look at the control surfaces at the end of the wing there. You might even have to switch into 4K in order to be able to see it. But look at how little inputs you're getting on those control surfaces there, and what the response of the plane actually is. I find that quite amazing. Alright, 350 knots, we're now at maximum speed. We're approaching 10,000. Going to descend all the way down, and we're just going to keep the speed up high. So up here, this is like the maximum roll rate you're getting at these speeds. You can see the airplane is reacting quite a bit less, because our flight controls have some protections included, as far as I remember, which actually which prevent the airplane from exceeding its load limitations at higher speeds. Right, let's navigate around the clouds over here, and then we'll see where we can find our airfield. Should be a little bit to the left of us. I just wanted to make sure to get around those clouds. Like that. Okay then, heading 020. And that is going to put us onto a nice downwind. Now we just gotta find the airfield again, but we still have that in front of us, roughly 10 miles out. Okay, can live with that. So let's just level out over here. Add some power again. And let's see what we can get in low-level flight out of the Vulcan. 4,500. Fine for me right now. Give me 95%. Here we go, 95% is roughly set. Quick look outside. We better not miss our field. That's gonna end badly. Haven't seen it yet, but we still got a little bit of space ahead of us. Oh, down there it is. Can see it on the right hand side over there. Alright then. Let's go idle. Don't have flaps or anything the likes. But you can see it's losing power really nicely. Or rather, it's losing speed really nicely when you pull it into idle. So that's a field on the right hand side there. Speed is below 250, let's increase our radar descent a bit. And the field is approaching the beam position. We're going down to 1000 AGL. Okay, cool. And up here, just to show you, we got quite a bit more elevator authority again. Up and, well, down, as you can see, isn't that great, but it's totally doing the job. Okay then. Reduce speed and maintain 160. Gear down. And then we can start turning base. Roughly 150 knots works pretty well for the base. So just to show you, this is gear retracting, and this is the gear extension. Okay, speed's looking good. Crossing the localizer right now. Let's add a little bit more bank. But be careful, you can see how easily your rate of descent increases there. And there's our field. We overshot a little bit. Okay, speed 150 looking good. That's a field inside again. Speed's back under control. Now it's hard to see anything. Here we go. That's better. Well, we got a little bit fast there. But it's my second landing or something with the Vulcan, so as I told you earlier, I'm just learning the plane while we're doing this. Because I want to show you how much fun it is to fly this without that military background. Right, here we are. A little bit of wind from the right there. Idle power. Flare. Bit of left rudder. And we're down. Ooh, keep it on the runway, please. Man, that was quite a drift. Okay, gotta do that once more. Bring the power back up. Come on. Select takeoff. Set power. 148, rotate. Okay, we gotta do a better pattern than that. Positive climb, gear up. Reducing power. Very hard to get the nose down right now. This is full nose down input. A little bit of bank though really helps. Like, look at that. If I add bank, the nose comes down really easily. So that's what the guys at JustFlight told me as well. I was like, well, but this is very little nose down authority. And they were like, yeah, that's how the Vulcan is. You gotta add bank in order to get the nose down. And when we do that, indeed it works very nicely. So this time we're flying a left traffic, because we'll be able to see the runway much better during a left pattern. Down there it is, just coming into the view on the top there. Also nice to see the shadow going on, roughly in the middle right now. Shape of the plane is just amazing. Okay, let's not get too quick. Heading looks good for downwind. That's a runway inside. Okay, we're beam. Reducing speed, gear down. So 160 knots, we're going to maintain that for now. I want a little bit of margin. 150 is going to be our final approach speed. Alright, let's start our turn. That's what I meant. 10 knots is really easy to lose here. That's our runway over there. Looking good. This one is much better than the previous one. Okay, that's a proper base up here. And then we can start turning final. Right, that's our runway. That pattern is much better, I have to say. So, speed back 150. Yeah, that's a pattern I'm happy with. Now I just gotta do proper landing out of it, otherwise we're gonna do the third one. Okay, throttles to idle. Flare it a bit, decrap. And we are down. Right, get out that tail chute. Tail chute is jettisoned. And that's it. Alright, that was fun. That was fun. It takes a bit to get used to the aerodynamics of the Vulcan, but once you're used to it, the plane is a lot of fun to fly, really. Okay, so let's see if we can find a taxiway for ourselves. There's one going to the right. That sounds about good to me. Okay then, let's vacate that runway. Again, large aeroplane, we're sitting quite high as well, so... Here we go. Okay, let's go into that straight part of the taxiway, and then we'll clean the plane up, and thereafter talk about a couple of my impressions from this first flight. Okay, cool. So, retracting the air brakes. Then we're just gonna go to the right-hand seat for a second. So, second pilot, here we are. Turning on the taxi lights. And that's literally all we need to do for the after-landing procedure. Okay, back to first pilot. By the way, nice to see, when you change to the second pilot seat, then you actually get the 3D model of the first pilot on the left-hand seat. That's quite cool. Okay then, so here we are again. So, what's my first impression of the Vulcan? Well, let's start with the visual model, which is just looking gorgeous. The visual model, nothing to complain about. Instruments are looking cool. Now, the light is a little hard to show you, like, it's daylight, so I can't really show you the lights, but those are probably a topic for a separate video, because they do look really cool as well. Now, what's worth saying, in terms of the model is that we do have the flight deck fully modeled over here in a really good quality, I gotta say. But the Vulcan has more crew stations than that. So a little bit further back we've got the navigator station and we've got the electrical station. And those two, well, here they are. But they are 3D models, like you can easily see over here, but it looks a little bit 2D-like. So you've just got the panel modeled and not the entire part of the compartment. You can't look around in the panel or anything the like. So your camera is fixed over there. And, well, keeping that in mind, you got the important parts on those panels for what you need to carry out. But it would be nice if you had the entire compartment modeled like that you could actually move back there and have a look back there and look around in that compartment. But being honest, over here you just need those for the technical stuff that you were doing on the ground anyway. So in flight, the part that you're going to spend 14 hours flying down to the Falklands, that's the part that is completely modeled over here. Alright, sounds then. Well, sounds have been recorded from the real plane, so there's really not much I can say about it. In this particular video I did use the Olympus 301 engines. Those are the ones which do not have that distinctive howl sound that many of you know from the Vulcan. That's part of the Olympus 201 engines, both of which are going to be modeled in this package. However, I did choose the setting appropriate for the airframe that I was flying over here. So that's the background on the sounds that you heard. Now, apart from that, sounds are really good, as I mentioned. Recorded on the real plane. JustFlight actually got a video out there on YouTube showing you how they recorded those, so really nothing I can say about that. Nothing bad. Very good sounds. Now, flight dynamics are interesting, I gotta say. I've never flown a Vulcan, I've never flown military, so I cannot comment on how realistic those flight dynamics are. What I can say is, you've got to plan ahead flying the Vulcan. Like, you don't have too much nose up or nose down authority on the elevators, and if you really need to lower the nose quickly, you can only do it by going in with a bank angle. I did ask JustFlight about it. They said it was realistic. They even talked to real Vulcan crews who confirmed it to be realistic, so I do trust them when they say that. And with that, my take on the flight model is interesting in that it really is that. I cannot comment on how realistic it is. It surely is a lot of fun. The plane steers really nicely in flight. The plane is very nice to control, even for longer flights. It's nice to trim out. Once it's trimmed, the thing just goes and goes and goes. So it flies really nicely. It has its caveats flying it, but those I seem to be realistic based on the feedback I got from JustFlight. So a lot of fun to fly. And that's really my conclusion on the Vulcan. It is a lot of fun to fly this airplane. So it comes at a price of $29.99, so that is a very good price for a plane like that. JustFlight does say it has pretty much all systems of the real Vulcan modeled. I did not try to drop a nuke yet, but who knows. And overall, it's just a lot of fun to fly. So that is my take on the on flying the Vulcan. Alright then, let's move to the back and we're going to go ahead and shut it down. First thing is the AAPP. We're going to shut that down. Then we're going to go back to the front. Autopilot, power switch, off. And the fuel switches can... Okay, so that's that. So DI switches on the co-pilot instruments panel are set to low. Parking brake is set. Then we can switch off the PFCs, auto stabilizers, and artificial feel. Make sure that they're all illuminated. So that's what we've got over here, and well, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's quite interesting. You can see you can actually turn all those buttons as well, and by turning them, you're basically dimming or making the lights brighter. So that's what you do with these. And it's quite interesting to see they modeled this for every single button separately, but it also means you gotta be a little bit careful there when you are trying to click them, because you really gotta click the middle of the button. Okay, cool. So next up we are going to open the bomb bay doors. Here they are. Then on the engine start panel, the engine master is set to off. Radio equipment is off. So next up we are going to retract the taxi light, so we go to the second pilot seat down here. Off and off. Okay, switch off the pressure head heaters. Again, pressure head, that's the British term for the pitot probes. Alright, now we're gonna move to the rear cockpit and turn off the TRUs. Oh, set off, not reset. And the generators. So that's the AC power basically turned off. Okay, from here we're gonna go back into the cockpit and we are going to shut down our engines. So that is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Alright then, all the fuel pump switches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 fuel pump switches are set off. Alright, and with that, our airplane is basically shut down. So, from now it's a little bit of jumping between the cockpit panels, so we've got to turn that off, we've got to turn that off. And then we've got one in the back over here, which is off. So you can see loads of things for us to switch on and off. And basically that's it. Okay, so chocks are in place. Covers for later, it's still a little bit hot. Crew door going open. I just totally love that crew door and the way you gotta crawl into the Vulcan. And with that, let's just go back to the cockpit one more time and back to the AUO position. No, not the navigator. That one. And we are basically going to switch off the battery. And that's it, guys. Your very first flight on the Vulcan is complete. Now, this is by far not a tutorial. I'm sure there's going to be others who are able to do much better tutorials. This is first flight from a perspective of somebody who's not a military pilot, so obviously military procedures are something quite strange for me. The same goes with military flying. However, I absolutely love the looks and the feels and the sounds of these aircraft, and I gotta say JustFlight hit them very well. It comes at a very competitive price there of just under 30 euros, so a lot of fun to get for very little money. The value for money is obviously very good, and personally I can absolutely recommend you to have a look at the Vulcan. Even if you're not that military guy, it just is one of those special aircraft, and it flies to a very high level, it flies at a good speed even though it's not supersonic, and it's very easy control, so loads of fun to fly. And that's it. That's my feedback on the Vulcan, which is going to be available on the 28th of November from JustFlight for a price of €29.95, I believe. Just under 30 euros, so very good value for money. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I do hope you liked it. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. Leave a like if you did indeed like the video, as it does help with YouTube algorithms. And if you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, everyone. I see you all again on the next one, and in the meantime, enjoy your JustFlight Vulcan.